I am. I'm good at winning those.
I seem to be pretty good at losing them.
I lose all the things. I tried to make it a slap bet, but then no, that will not happen.
I would love to see that.
I get a Snickers bar.
Alright, are we ready to do this?
Oh, sure.
Ready?
Yeah. Sure, buddy.
Alright, welcome to the 2013 Podcasters Summit. Let's hear it. Come on.
Another time so we can loop it over and make it sound like the audience is twice as good. Yeah.
Just like on live albums.
I am your moderator, Rick Gutierrez of the United States of Geekdom. We have several very talented individuals here. And we're gonna talk with them a little bit and get to know them and talk about podcasting.
Sure you want to do that for me?
Yeah.
I've been warned, folks.
All right, we have from SCNS Live, Jason the X. Jason the X is one of the co-hosts of the weekly show, SCNS Live, that is a rabid collector of Transformers. He was in the U.S. Navy for 10 years and after realizing there wasn't really a special ops team called G.I. Joe, he decided to get out and return to his home in Dallas. After doing some improv and amateur stand-up comedy, he was recruited by co-host Chris Danger for a weekly show on nerd culture. They also cover conventions and local businesses around Dallas. If you see Jason out in public in stores with a rabid look in his face, stand clear, he's probably toy hunting.
That's actually from his Wikipedia page. That's pretty much it.
We also have Thomas of the Fellowship of the Geeks. Thomas is the fearless leader of the Fellowship of the Geeks and a dreamer. TC, as he's known to most, has been reading comics since childhood. He specializes in 70s comics and has way too many to even start counting. So not so much not your grandpa's comics, but your grandpa's comics.
I'm sorry?
I've got way too many. I've got stuff back from the 60s and 50s.
So old people comics.
So old people comics.
There you go. Yeah, your grandpa's comics. Okay. All right, from the Dell OL show, and it took me a little bit of getting used to say.
No, it's intentional. It draws you in.
We have Mr. Del Pullen and Miss Taffeta Darling. Your host Del Pullen with help from co-hosts Jay Derrick and Taffeta Darling, who raise a beloved piece of art to the ground and rebuild it with impressive insight. Tune into this comedy show with reviews, films, television, comic books, and other media with special guests and local artist interviews. You'll laugh, you'll cry, you'll learn. You're welcome.
You're welcome.
Roy, you gave me a novel. I'm gonna add it a little bit.
It was the best of times. It was the blurst of times.
Come on.
We have Roy Buckingham from Sassy Cast right here. Roy was born a poor black child in the Brewster Project, North Michigan. At 15, he was discovered by an Ebony magazine talent scout, and his modeling career took off until he learned he had to stop eating pizza. So he said, "Screw that noise, I'll just become a gay white bear." Yes. Roy is part of Sassy Cast. He is also a regular contributor to United States of Geekdom with his show, The Cult Film Fanatics. He's also my co-host on Rediscovering the Magic. Woo. We have Ben from the Nerd Show. Woo. Sunday nights at 7, the Nerd Show is your radio source for comic books, movies, gaming, and more. Ben, Christy, Glenn, and Thaddeus cover everything from the latest in nerd news to the issues of your favorite comic books, movies, and TV shows, and the video games you cannot afford to miss, let alone afford. Check out the Nerd Show Sunday nights at 7 on 1190 AM or listen online at iHeartRadio.com, keyword 1190 AM. For more information on the Nerd Show, it's the-nerd-show-online.com. Please help me in welcoming the executive producer and co-host of the Nerd Show, Ben Stevens.
There are no dashes.
There are no dashes.
Okay.
There are, no, and in the copy I sent. No.
Okay. Yeah, there are dashes in the copy you sent.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
No problem. Also in our audience is Adam of Radcast. And according to Adam on his site, it says Adam is the tech nerd of Radcast. For all intents and purposes, he is the producer and webmaster for the show. He covers the tech news segments of the show, and according to his website, it's pretty much boring. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the panel, but we understand why you're sitting down.
There's so many people.
I know.
I didn't want to take up more room. But thank you very much for inviting Radcast. We appreciate being here. We'll see you guys out tonight. We'll be out doing our show as well. So everybody's welcome to stop by and say hello. We'll be happy to have you.
Okay. We also have from the Midnight Movie Cowboys, Hunter Duesing. Joined by John Grace of the Damage Viewing Podcast and the self-proclaimed most hated man in podcasting, Stuart Balk. Hunter Duesing is one third of the Midnight Movie Cowboys. His passion about film comes out in every episode, and his almost obsessive knowledge about classic martial arts films and many other genres can be heard on this podcast and several others. Welcome to the show. And finally, we have Mr. Cole Houston, a man who needs no introduction. Because he's on the entirely too many podcasts. He's on the United States of Geekdom. He's on the Jedi Cole Universe. He's the co-host of Hey Kids Comics. He's the occasional co-host of Rediscovering the Magic, very occasionally. And but yeah, and he's going to be leaving early because he has to go judge a costume contest.
Life is hard.
Such is the life of a regional Z-list celebrity.
Self-proclaimed.
So dapper.
Thank you very much.
The cleanest
It's a
you'll ever
costume
see.
contest. I try to
Yes,
dress
it
like a
is.
slob.
There's not an ounce of food on him today. Wow.
And the panel degenerates into that.
This is actually the podcasting version of Lord of the Flies.
So, and myself, I'm Rick Gutierrez of the United States of Geekdom. I also host Rediscovering the Magic, which is a monthly podcast on Disney trivia, Disney history, and what else, Roy?
Poop jokes.
Thank you.
A very occasional co-host on Hey Kids Comics.
Yeah.
Very occasional.
Very occasional.
Very occasional.
So, my first question to you guys, why do you podcast? Who wants to go first?
Start at the end of the table.
The money and the women.
What?
Obviously.
Yeah, you're clearly doing it right.
I clearly am.
Yeah, I'm kind of like Bobcat Goldthwait, I think it was, in one of the Police Academy movies.
Why not?
Okay.
I guess the reason we kind of do it is, or at least for me, there'll be a lot of times, you meet interesting people, and if you didn't have a reason to be talking to them later, you look like kind of an oddball. You know, if you meet somebody like the girl that was playing Ocarina earlier dressed as Zelda, you know, she was cool. Her name's, was it Claire?
We'll say Aaron.
Chris, no, it's Chris Gale. Anyway, very nice young lady, very cool. I met her husband too, and if I didn't have any reason to interview her or talk to her later, that'd be it. We'd have 2 or 3 sentences and it would be over. But because you have a chance to, you know, do interviews and have a podcast, I was able to say, hey, would you like to step over in the hallway and shoot a pre-taped interview for our next show? Would you like to come back on the show in a month or 2? And because of that, I had a chance to sit and talk with her husband a little bit. Now he's going to work on audio for a film project of ours. And she's going to sit in on one of my next band's recordings. She's going to sit in and play Ocarina on it. And that wouldn't have happened if you didn't have a reason to keep having somebody back. And one of the reasons I like interviewing people is everybody meets interesting people every day.
Mm-hmm.
It's to continue to carry on a relationship with that person. And really it's just a cheap excuse to whore yourself out and pretend that you have something they could use from you. Look, I have a show. Would you like to come on and promote whatever you have? Oh, God, yeah, I would. Excellent. Let's hang out and go grab beers afterwards. But it's kind of a way of not only just meeting people, but showing them to other people. I could go out tomorrow and say, hey, I saw this really cool girl that played Ocarina, you know, at All-Con. And people are going to go like, what the fuck is All-Con? I'm going to go, oh, yeah, we shot a bunch of footage for that, too.
You're not going to ask what an ocarina is?
No, most of my friends have played Legend of Zelda, so oddly enough, that would be the thing that they know.
Is that
more than
song
anything
from the
else.
90s with the stupid dance?
No, you're thinking of the Breeders. So, but no, it's a great opportunity to not only solidify relationships with people that you find interesting, but it's also you like that one. But it's also a way of bringing things that I find interesting to other people. I know with a lot of other web shows, like the Nerd Show or the United States of Geekdom, there's a theme to it, and the reason we kind of went with the LOL show originally before Taff came on is the show is about me, the show is about what I like, the show is about the people I want to show to other people, and I really kind of respect when somebody puts their name on a show like they do on the top of a building, because you're claiming ownership of that, and it's not about just nerd stuff, it's about stuff I find interesting, and our fans that watch the show, it's stuff that I think they would want to learn more about.
It's also a good way to get rid of your verbal diarrhea.
Yes.
Yes, it is.
When I go home, my girlfriend is so glad that I do a show and get all that crap out beforehand, so I can just sit and drink and yell at her in a nice, calm, quiet environment.
So it is possible to actually get it all out? Because I'm nonstop myself.
Yeah,
I
never
know.
stop.
Cole and I, whenever we do talk every once in a while, he's the placeholder. People have to pull us apart with advice scripts.
Cole, if you stop eating prunes, it wouldn't stop.
Roy, how about you?
For world peace. The reason why I do it is because I've got, especially when it comes to cult film fanatics and rediscovering the magic, I've got way too much useless trivia in my head that's going nowhere, so why not talk about it? And with me, it's better to talk about it than write it down.
Okay. Guys?
Well, it's because I'm a narcissistic blowhard.
Good answer.
Good answer.
First honest answer of the evening.
Why else, No, I mean, you just have those conversations with friends, and it's like, that are really, that you think are interesting. That doesn't necessarily mean they are, but why not record them and toss them out there? And if you like it, great. If not, you can piss and moan about it on your blog. But
It's like
which has happened to us.
Yes.
But I don't know. It's just kind of a fun hobby. And I like movies, and I like listening to people talk about movies, and I like talking about movies, and we also talk about heavy metal music a lot too. So that happens. But yeah, that's about it.
All right. Jason?
I have a hard time telling people no for things.
I've got a few questions for you later.
Honestly, no. I got out of the Navy and I had no idea what I was going to do with my life. So a friend of mine, Joe, he started up an improv group. I was like, sure, I'll do it. And I thought I was auditioning. He was like, no, we're pretty much on it. So yeah. Chris found me through that and was like, I'm starting up a weekly podcast. Yeah, I'll do it, sure. I have no idea what I'm doing. No idea what's there. We've been going about a year now, and I've honestly learned so much doing this, and I'm kind of glad I did. It's just, if you got the opportunity to do something new or different and that you've never done in your life, go for it. That's how.
Okay, right on. Thomas?
Well, for me, it's kind of strange because I'm very shy and introverted, so the fact that I'm actually hosting a webcast and running a website and it's all me is kind of different for me. It's been you talk about a growing experience. It has been. I have learned a lot, and I'm glad I've done it. I've met a lot of interesting people. I love the conversations that I have because it's always interesting to hear a different viewpoint from yours. Although sometimes we don't have different viewpoints, but it's always interesting kind of having those conversations and trying to pick other people's minds about things of, that kind of stuff.
Okay. All right.
Richard, I was also going to say one of the things that I guess from a practical reason, we do the LOL show, but I actually produce another show about beer, and it's the idea that if I hadn't done the LOL show for a couple of years, I wouldn't have learned what it takes to produce somebody else's show. And even doing the web show and making, negotiating, getting guests on, scheduling time, from just a sheer practical standpoint, it's helped me in my day job. I do better with clients, I do better with sales, and producing another beer show. If I've got to go talk to breweries a lot of times, these are people that own multi-million-dollar companies and owns just small little breweries like Community or Lakewood Dallas Brewery. But it really helps develop that sense of interacting with other people, negotiating and doing business. Where if you just have a job like an accountant, you go, you crunch your numbers and you come home, you never really learn that skill of bartering and negotiating and getting what you want while it seems like you're giving somebody else something that benefits them.
Yeah.
You know, and it's really helped me in my day job too, to be quite honest.
Okay. Right on.
For me, it was one of those things where, I had gotten into radio many years before, and, there was nothing like it on terrestrial radio, nothing like, sitting at this table. I'm humbled at what you guys have done, and, just starting up from scratch and from literally nothing. I just hit it the right time in my company where I pitched it to the higher ups, who are all nothing but suits. And, they're like, okay, well, we'll barter this time with you and see what you can do with it. And it's a learning experience. You're pretty much starting your own business, and you're selling yourself and your company, and you have to make yourself look as big as life. And it's very hard to do, especially in our field. We've got a ravenous audience, and it's sometimes, they're unforgiving. And it's very hard to appeal to other, to everyone inside our group.
Yeah, it's
We
like,
don't care about you nerds.
it's like with us with Rediscovering the Magic. We put out an episode once a month, and then if we are late, or if our listeners even think we're late, they're like, "Where's this episode?"
Oh, yeah, I've come across that too.
Where's episode 10? It's in the can, it's getting cut. It'll be out at the end of the month.
Is that how you see Disney fans in that voice?
You just lost all your audience. Hopefully they'll listen to your other show.
He's got another show? Cole, how about you?
Well, the weird thing is, when I started as a podcaster, I'd seen a post on a website for, I think, like the DFW Fan Force or something like that. This guy had posted this thing. He was doing a webcast or a podcast based on Star Wars, if anyone was interested in being on the show. So I wrote what became a legendary email. It was about 17 paragraphs, just outlining my credentials as a Star Wars fan, being, having actually been born before Star Wars and that sort of thing. And I didn't know what podcasting was, but the Star Wars was at the front of it, so it sounded appealing. And there was a little podcast called VaderCast, and I kind of hung around with those guys for a while. I wound up being the only, other than the guy who started it, the only inaugural member who was still on the cast when it ended. And there was a running joke that I was taking the thing over because at one point I met Rick through a whole different avenue. And he seemed like, well, he'd probably be good for this. So I said, guess what, Tim? We got a new member on the team. I'm like, okay. And so Rick started into podcasting, and then in desperation with VaderCast's sporadic schedule, he started Amazing Comic Cast, which he might tell you about later, about the experience of trying to do it by himself.
Rest in peace, Amazing Comic
Yes.
Cast.
And then,
VaderCast for that matter.
And a friend of his was on for a while. I thought it was like 20 or 30 episodes. It turned into like 9 or 10 or something like that. And he was like, oh, I've lost my co-host. Would you like to do another podcast? And I was like, okay. They got nothing better to do. So we started Amazing Comic Cast. Someone pointed out that we weren't talking about comics all the time. So that's how United States of Geekdom was born. And then completely not out of desperation for anything, I created the Jedi Kill universe just as a place to showcase stuff that I didn't feel had the right fit. And I'd done, by that time, I'm on 3 podcasts. I might as well do something myself. And then that has since spawned the Convention Awareness Project, which is going to be the most universal resource for conventions in Texas year-round.
Cole, as a question, how does it feel like I was talking about, where the show's more about, like the Jedi Cole is something that kind of allows you to branch out and do something that's not as confined by saying, nerd or geek or comic or films?
It does present a big challenge because I created the site more to be a combination of podcasting and blogging, I guess. Because, I'm old enough to call it typing paper. So, this is, I grew up with a VIC-20, so to give you an idea of my computer skills. So I wanted something where I could showcase my writing. Yeah.
Just him.
But also, as a result, I eventually started trying to produce a few podcast things. I did one called Jedi Cole's Open Mic Night. The idea would be we just invite a single guest and we do a little interview thing. I produced all of one. Rick has recorded the second episode of Who Do You Love, which has yet to air. So eventually, if I stop doing other things, I'll be able to cut and produce that second episode finally. And the only reason that Hey Kids Comics has run consistently is because Andrew keeps me on a brutal weekly schedule.
Which I tried with Amazing Comic Cast, and let's face it, it's too brutal.
Well, there were too many of us. So
yeah, there's too many.
That many voices were just like 3.5 hours later, like, shut up.
For me, I think the reason why I podcast is because it's a reason for me to get together with friends on a weekly or bi-weekly basis, just to talk and just to bullshit. That's what it is. Just to talk and have a conversation. And I think that's the fun part of it.
Well, I think that, the USG is far more organic than VaderCast was. No offense to VaderCast, it's a whole different approach.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, literally, if you're listening to somebody at a different table who's talking about the things you like, and just kind of like, what are you talking about there, guys?
Well, I was gonna say, how many times do I've seen a couple of movies where I thought, oh, that movie was good, or maybe that movie was great, but after talking with some friends about it, I'm like, my opinion kind of starts changing and wavering, and so I like the idea of sitting with people and discussing art, to kind of like, well, did I think that all the way through? Maybe I missed something. There've been films where I was like, it was really subpar. Or subpar good because Golf is the lowest score. Well, whatever. It was below what I liked.
I don't think subpar is good.
I don't think, but it seems it should be. Since Golf, the lowest score wins, you're under par. Whatever. When you talk with people, I think that not only do you help define your own opinions, but your own views as well. I mean, what's the old argument about you don't know your own opinion until you can defend it, And, if someone says they hate Fight Club, I better be able to defend why the hell Fight Club is a good movie. I can't just say I like it.
Unless you hate Fight Club.
Unless I hate Fight Club. Right.
See, that's the totally opposite of our show, because it's just me and Chris pretty much fighting about everything.
Yeah.
It's just lucky times when he's actually away from me. Like, we did a show where he was like actually sitting next to me, and I was actually able to hit him during the show. So I'm gonna cut however many times I've said "to hell with you." I must have said that
together in one big montage.
Just to hell with you. To hell with you, Chris.
But I think the idea is that also I like, sometimes, like, you're right, I've been listening to other people have a conversation about a movie, and I'll be like, I didn't think about that. It's a good thing I overheard that. Where I'm listening to sports radio or something like that, and I'll be like, I didn't really take that into account.
Yeah.
And I hope that there's sometimes, when I'm talking with my friends about movies, I tend to have that effect on them. I studied film, I studied philosophy and anthropology in college, so I kind of have a way of looking at stuff that's a little different than just, ooh, it was sparkly and there's moving images, Like when I saw Avatar. Huh? But like when I saw Avatar, no matter how your feelings were about it, people were very divided. But I'll admit, I thought that was a great looking, amazing, beautiful piece of dog shit. It was absolutely one of the best ones.
So glad you ended that with dog shit.
That was one of the the best polished dog turds I've ever seen in my life. It shone like amazing. I've never seen dog shit shine like that. And and I've had people that come out and they're like, "Oh, Avatar was a great movie." 5 minutes of sitting with me, they're like, "Fuck Avatar! I'm never gonna watch that movie again." I'm like, yes. And I feel like I've accomplished a little something for art as a medium. That. I kind of, I've had people that didn't like Godfather, and so I shackled them to a chair, and we watched Godfather while I explained to them why they were wrong. And sure enough, they were like, yes, Del, you're right, thank you.
Did you make them watch A Clockwork Orange style?
Yeah.
That's how Rick wants to make me watch Cars.
That's how I want That's how I want to make Rick watch the Oogie Loves.
Not happening. Just not going to happen. All right, next question. What have you had to cut from a show that you really wanted to leave in?
Ooh. Not a damn thing.
You've listened to Sassy Cats, right?
Yes.
Yeah. There's a reason why over the past 3 years we've had to find new homes and new servers, because we keep getting reported. We have a massive 3-minute disclaimer before each episode for a reason. So, yeah,
that's so nice that we don't have that. I don't know that we've ever cut anything other than to just be polite. There's been 1 or 2 things where somebody maybe mentioned their address on the air,
Oops.
or something like that, or they dropped the name, and that's why I had to, report that I'm a sexual offender. And I'm like, okay, we don't need that if we're talking about Star Wars. We'll do that to be polite. But in general, God, we've talked about some things.
We don't have anything to connect, this is a live show.
Yeah,
We don't have the opportunity.
Yeah,
to
first of all, I
connect
mean,
and
we
stream live.
do put up Blair, and I guess for anybody that doesn't know, we're a video broadcast show. So we have 4 cameras that broadcast live video while we're doing it. So unlike some audio broadcasts, we're able to bring in comic book artists that can demonstrate their work, musicians that can perform, but we can bring in more visual artists, dancers, burlesque performers, stuff like that. So it kind of opens up that range for us. But I think our Christmas show, our first Christmas show, we had Jai LeBay and Pasties eating fire and twirling fire in the studio, and we invited the kids to watch.
The fact that you fit all that into a sentence.
Wow.
Yeah, we don't cut me down ever. That's the one thing. I can turn off everybody else's microphone. That's the
Yeah,
one.
but yeah, we really don't have anything that we really cut out since it's a live stream show. Like you can go back and you can like watch the actual, clips of the interviews that may be separated from the actual like.
Yeah, we'll
full
highlight stuff and
episode
pull them out.
But usually we don't cut anything out since it's a
Yeah,
live show.
like I said, unless it's for a safety reason, if somebody's address, something that could get somebody in trouble. If somebody says something stupid like they cop to a crime that probably sells a statute of limitations, they're my friend, I might cut that off.
Oh, jeez.
Mute it. But generally, no, we've said some pretty freaking offensive stuff. I found out on our station, we're the most offensive show, even though we're like the nerd show, kind of. We, not to be like the nerd show, but yeah, we're kind of like the nerdy geek show. There's shows with all sorts of different types of people talking about sports, and sometimes they are and they're not doing things in studio that are illegal behind the camera and stuff like that. Most of them are drunk, and I still found out that we're the most offensive show on the entire station.
Wow.
So we've had people get up and walk out of our audience because of some, we have a little studio audience there, and we made a joke one time about Jesus, and 3 or 4 of the people that lingered over from the other show were these Mexican Catholic girls, and they were like, up, out. There was like none of that. You said Jesus' name? Nope, gone.
Rick,
So,
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to cut myself, so I can go judge a costume contest.
Actually, there is one thing that not so much before you leave, because we got to tell this story.
This wasn't something we regretted cutting.
No, this is not something we regretted
Talking
cutting.
about.
This is something we were very glad to cut. We record an occasional show called Super Geek Out.
Are you telling the story I think you're going
Yes, I am.
Damn it, I had that one chambered.
Now, we've done a few of these. It's on the Jedi Cult Universe Network, and the idea was it was going to be United States of Geekdom and
Midnight Movie
Midnight
Cowboys.
Movie Cowboys, both casts doing a show together. And it has some rough structure, and the rest of it's just BS.
A whole lot of BS.
Yeah, and then sometimes you invite Australians who drink a lot at the time.
My
Can we
co-host,
stop being so
of course, we
judgmental,
call them
please?
Australians.
How's that apple juice working for you?
Helping out my system. Just does.
Loving the smell of that apple
And
juice.
Digestive.
occasionally we invite Australians on the show who are racist.
well,
Or
not
we call them
now let's
Australians.
let's hold on a second. My
Yeah.
co-host is not racist.
He's not
He's just
racist.
wildly politically incorrect.
But he's just an ass.
Good brother Rick.
He's not a racist, he just hates people who are not white.
Yeah. Thank you.
And
I'm
Avengers.
50% offended by that. The other half doesn't give a damn.
So-
There was a little tale that was told.
It's about when Arnold Schwarzenegger met Sammy Davis Jr.
And
Oh,
Stu likes to improv
How
the
could this go
scenario
wrong?
out himself.
Yes.
Yeah, bless him, Stu not only cut that out when he cut the show for us, he actually forced or convinced his daughter to read a disclaimer about what had happened, or at least suggest that something so terrible had happened for, what was it, 9.5 minutes, something like that.
About that,
Oh,
yeah.
the tirade was nonstop, because we couldn't get a word in edgewise. And he's like, well, my father.
No, what was it? Due to the extreme racism in this bit, my father has edited this scene out.
You know,
But I think probably the worst thing was he had a sound effect chambered for Sammy Davis Jr.'s glass eyes falling out, and he had a horrible and a shot glass, and he would drop it in front of a microphone and rattle it around.
That's not as bad as the sound effect I pulled on Rick that time.
But when we did the Arnold Schwarzenegger show for USG, I actually trotted that out, but we did the much sanitized version of it.
Yeah.
What was it, like 3 words?
3 words, yeah.
When he
Just
told
you
the
saying yes,
When he told the story, did he end it by saying the Aristocat? The Aristocat?
That's the only redeeming quality that would come from that.
Probably would have helped.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's not the worst sound effect though. The one I pulled on Rick that time.
What could be worse than a glass eye?
Well, I forgot.
Rick had to leave. We were recording something. He was like, "Oh, I gotta go get something real quick."
Oh yes. Oh God.
And
Yes.
so, because we knew he would hear this when he cut the show, I was drinking this big old glass of iced tea, so I took a big old swig. And okay, Rick's gone. Just started leaking a little stream into the glass. And then with a little pause, a little bit more. So like 3 days later, he's like, "You're an ass." So with that, I take my
All right.
Also, made it sound like I had a urinal tract infection. Do I need to get that into the mic? Urinal tract infection.
No, not necessarily, but that's fine.
One more time, just to be sure.
Okay.
So, not a damn thing for you?
There are things I've wanted to cut from the show, but unfortunately, actually, it's more the things that Chris makes me do that I just have a hard time saying no to. We went and covered. There's a local promotion called MPX Wrestling. And I don't know if any of you guys watch wrestling, but have you ever seen when they do the chop on somebody?
Oh, sure, yeah.
Yeah, well, somehow I agreed to take one of these from their best wrestler. Well, their best chopper. And I'm not sure exactly why I did it, and I'm not sure why 5 other wrestlers lined up afterwards. But it's like third chop. Chris is like sitting next to me, and this mountain of a man named Scott Murdoch, he's like, "Hey, can you demonstrate what a proper chop looks like?" And this guy just smacks me. You hear the mic we were using, you should not have been able to hear our cameraman go, "Ah!" And I just dropped to the floor in pain. And then like the third one, Danger leans over and says, "Oh, take it like a man." I'm like, "Clearly I'm taking it like a man." Chest was purple. The next day, they even had this one girl, it was like all 5'1" come up. And I'm like, "What's she gonna do?" Ah! So like 6 chops later, my chest is just like purple across. And my wife's like, "Why did you do this?" I don't know, because it was funny at the time. That was one thing I kind of wish I had. We could have just done without that, because it was just. If you think wrestling's fake, that part ain't. Damn. Never again.
Thomas?
Well, we do a live show too, so we can't, usually go back and edit stuff out. But I can't think of anything that's just been so crazy. Like, I would say, "Oh my God, did you actually just say that?" I can't think of anything right now.
Okay. No problem.
Radio being radio. We only get 1 hour.
Yeah.
And our problems began when I said the line, "I'm sorry to Bruce Boxleitner and Cindy Morgan, but we don't have time for you during this broadcast."
Wow.
And we reaped the whirlwind with Cindy.
She let us know.
She let her feelings be known. Bruce is Bruce. He's all like, "Where's my disc?" When we met him at the convention that next week. And he's very tall and very intimidating when in person.
He's following instructions.
But yeah, we did these beautiful 30-minute interviews with them, and we were going to chop them down into really, really tight interview segments to air.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was my fault because I booked too many people for our 1-year anniversary show. I mean, that was just not good or pretty.
We didn't want to cut it.
No, we didn't. No, we didn't.
But regardless of the fact that it was a 1-year anniversary show, you were still only given an hour?
Well, no, we actually did 2 hours on that one.
Wow.
We still had to bump 2 interviews because of the amount of people that we did.
Yeah, nothing will get you in a pot of hot water with guests that you want to keep in the future than canceling somebody, especially when they've made a trip down to the studio sometimes.
Well, luckily it was my phone.
Oh, okay, that's not so bad. We've actually had to move one girl, Sadie Lynch. She's a burlesque performer and model and a good friend of mine, personal friend. And they had a problem at the station one day, and they called me and they were like, "We're not going to be able to broadcast this weekend," so we moved her, and she was very cordial about it. So we moved her 3 weeks down the line, and 2 hours before the show was supposed to go on air, something happened and a transformer blew up in the neighborhood and we couldn't do the show. So I had to call her and say, let's move you again. So I moved her a month away. A month later,
Oh, no.
yeah, a month later they had equipment failure in the studio, just something ridiculous, and they weren't going to be able to get it fixed for like 12 hours or something, so somebody, technician could drive her from out of the city. So I had to move her.
Oh
That
my
was
God.
almost a year ago, and she still doesn't talk to me. And so if you're, she doesn't hate me or anything, but she, you can't, how do you explain to somebody, these are legitimate reasons, it's not just you, but when, if you bump somebody 3 times, if you bump somebody more than once, don't expect them to ever talk to you again. And one thing about having a show is you will learn to manage your time, or you will have people hate you and talk bad about you. And, in this kind of circle, your name means everything. Especially if your name is on the show, or your name is in the title. But, your name is what you build your reputation on in this, just kind of like anything else. And if you cancel on too many people, if you don't put a show through, if you tell people that show will be up, the segment will be up by Monday morning and it's not up for 2 weeks, you're going to have people hounding you and bothering you and not wanting to come on the show again later. And we've overbooked once or twice. Luckily, we're at a place where there's an hour built between our show and the next show, so we were able to go over. My engineer wasn't happy, my producer wasn't happy, but the station owner wasn't happy. But at least we didn't have to cancel. And I'd almost rather underbook because I can bullshit for an hour. I can
None of us have ever done that.
I can put my own head up my own ass so far for an hour or two that I can kill time. But if you overbook and you cut somebody, you're cutting yourself right
Yeah,
there.
you're
That's hard
essentially
to
on
do.
damage control at that point.
Yeah, it really is. If you do it twice, whoa, you better bring them on for a special or drive out to their house and interview them. That's one way I've recouped it, is driving out and shooting a pre-taped interview at somebody's house for one of their performances. That'll get you back in the good graces. But 3, they'll never talk to you again. Don't even worry about it. Wow. You lost a friend for life.
Wow. So, what has changed for you guys since you've started podcasting or doing the live shows and stuff like that?
Oh, for us?
Yeah.
Um,
We'll start at that end of the table.
Great, awesome. Now I have to think about my answer really fast now.
He gets every question first. Much love.
No, there isn't. Give me some of the apple juice.
It's good for you at some point in the digestion.
Oh, it's all good.
Eventually, you still have to answer the question.
He's stalling. He is stalling.
It's chock full of vitamins A.
Yes, it is.
More like double M.
That's the good stuff right there.
I'm telling you.
Nice.
Well, technically, what's changed for us is our outlook on our broadcast itself. We do have to take a few other things into consideration, such as commercial time.
Mhm.
That's one thing I really envy about you guys, is that you're able to just go for X amount of time without having to worry about breaking for a commercial break.
Mhm.
You constantly have the higher ups at the radio station saying, hey, you need to produce, we need to see results.
Mhm.
We don't have the time to really take our time and mold the show in what we want it. We're on fast forward the entire time, which is, it's breakneck speeds, and and even molding your cast of characters takes a year to do.
Mhm.
I mean, I don't know what kind of timetable you guys have been through, but I've been through 3 hosts before I finally found my cast of characters,
Yeah.
who ironically are all sitting in front of me.
Hi, Ben!
Hello.
Hi!
Yes.
We're here to watch you fail.
Thank you very much.
How is this different from every week for us?
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's right.
I'm not gonna say anything. I like this guy.
Little letters over here that usually has, we have to, that's rule number 1, is you gotta protect the radio broadcast license.
Oh, the FCC.
Yeah. We've luckily gotten to the point where we're tweaking programming, we're moving commercials around a little bit to really maximize, ratings. We are really ratings driven, is what we are. If we don't produce results, we'll get rid of us.
Yeah.
And that's one of the great things that you guys sometimes, or most of the time, don't have to deal with. You'll go at your own pace, and I so want to do that. I really do. But it's fun. We've managed to kind of break through, terrestrial radio and really kind of blaze a trail in that regard. And I really, owe a lot to you guys and what you've done with your own podcasts and putting together something like this, like a podcaster summit, is just I'm slapping my hands. It's weird.
It's called
Um,
clapping.
a little bit more of this.
Hey,
yeah, we're
swing
gonna-
that back this way if there's any more.
It's men's now.
Damn, I should've just brought the bottle.
Did you bring enough for everyone?
He's like, nah, it's empty eventually.
No, we're good. We're good for a little bit.
Yeah, we're good for a little bit. No, I just took a swig.
How many? Okay, we're good.
No, it's one of those things that, you know, a lot of the typical radio stuff that a lot of the big radio stations have to deal with, like dealing with suits and sales and the business side of things more than anything. I mean, everybody knows 80% of this job is networking. And it's, you know, week after week after week, you gotta deliver or you're gone. So that's what we really have to deal with, and that's what we're dealing with right now. We have the option of going 2 hours week to week, but we haven't taken it yet. Because we're really still fine tuning our 1 hour.
Wow. Okay.
Yep.
Thomas, how about you?
From what I've learned a lot just from a production side of how to put it together, thinking about what I want to say. What we usually have this design topic for our show. So like, okay, what do I want to say? What, you know, and that kind of thing. And something I'm still trying to work on is promote the show, to get it out, to let people know, hey, it's there. And it's something I'm really falling down on job on, and it's something I'm trying to work on. But I mean, this is just, you know, we've been doing the show off and on since October of 2010. And it's gone through so many changes, and it's about to go through another change. It's going through a major change here in the next couple of months. I'm fine tuning. It's going to be a lot more structured, and I know that's something that needs to be done. So it's you know, I'm learning some of the stuff that the other guys have already figured out months or a year ago, and I'm just a slow learner, you know. So. But it's been fun, and that's the major thing. Because I love doing it. I'm having a great time doing it. So everything else will work out, and that's something else I've been trying to learn. So
Okay.
There seems to be an unusual degree of dumb luck that usually happens when you're running a podcast.
Yeah, that pretty much runs my whole life.
Yeah, you kind of have to.
You're like, oh, that happens. That's awesome. Let's roll with it.
There's a theory that in podcasts you kind of fail upwards.
Yeah.
Sure, it's upwards.
and it's definitely a lot of trial and error. That's something that I had to learn a lot when I first started recording my own stuff, and then realizing that I needed my own co-hosts. So
It's hard to carry any kind of amount of time by yourself.
I envy guys like Steve Swanson, who does the Muppet Cast, because he's able to carry the show on his own. But then he puts in a lot of music clips to help buffer the show quite a bit. So he can do an entire show about songs from this particular show or from this particular movie or something like that, or like just jokes from a particular episode of the Muppet Show, stuff like that. And he's able to do that. I unfortunately need somebody to bounce off of. So yeah.
Oh, when Chris and I first started, it was he asked me to do it. Chris had history in broadcasting. I had nothing. I mean, I did stand-up comedy and improv before, and you know that was always fun. But I never really got into the podcasting thing. And like within a year, I've learned how to video edit, what frames to shoot in when we're going to cover stuff. I actually operated the board for the first time last week, and I screwed it up royally.
Well, if you don't screw it up, then you're not a board operator.
Then, like, text me on Facebook is like, you're fucking up. Turn your mic up. Oh, sorry.
No, I just gave you. I was like, oh no.
No, he was totally right. I was like, oh yeah, that button.
It's like
Okay,
the
there
first.
we
It's
go.
like the first rule. If somebody's struggling, you help them out.
And I was just sitting there like, oh god, I don't know what I'm doing. I wasn't even told to touch this stuff when I first came on board. You know?
That is not the rule on our show. If someone is struggling, you point it out to the audience and you watch them flounder all together. It's a way of bonding with your audience.
No. That's not on air. That's behind the scenes.
Oh no, it's on air on our show. I take great respect. One of the things I like to do on my show is I like to constantly pull the curtain back, if you will,
yeah.
you know, Wizard of Oz style.
Literally.
So Exactly, yeah. I don't wear pants half the time, I put hand down to show that. But yeah, I like to, when something goes wrong, we don't just try to get over it. Do I?
I don't need to see that.
But when something goes wrong on the show, you know, some people can just skip over and keep going. And I like to grind the show to a halt and pick apart the mistake. And then we all like jump on that person. And what's interesting about that is there's a few other radio people that do that too that I've liked, Russ Martin being particularly one of them. One thing I always liked is, one thing I always liked about it is it does show you kind of how it works. It's almost like you're watching a movie about a movie production of a movie. For just a second, the wall falls away, the fourth wall falls away, and you get to see the production aspect, the character breaks down, or, you know, if the engineer doesn't get something right, suddenly you're taken out of that suture, you know, in a film, and you're reminded, just like when you're watching shoot a movie in a movie, oh, that's right, I'm watching a production happen. I'm watching these actors act. I'm watching these people put together something. And I think that makes the other times more special because when you kick it back into the show, you have a little bit to laugh about that. But I like kicking down that fourth wall and hitting the audience with pieces of that wall occasionally.
Yeah, like the first time we did a live broadcast from a con, it was a royal claw. It was like we were set to do this on like Saturday, and the gear that we needed to use was gone. So it was like, so we're not doing this. But luckily, my brother-in-law who worked on the show before he went off to Afghanistan to make much money, we like just start clamoring together. Okay, we can get this laptop to do this. We can do this. Okay, we got a camera that'll do this. And somehow from the Anime Festival, we were able to do a damn show. And it was one of those, like, from Thursday to Saturday, it was like constant, we're just trying to get this thing together. And we finally got it done. And it was one of those where,
Good luck, Taffeta.
damn, we got it done. So it was like, I was after that moment, I was like, I'm in. This is it. Anything we're doing for now, I'm in. And it's just that accomplishing something. Actually getting it was, like I said, I was in the Navy for 10 years, and this was not anything I did.
It's that aspect of, you know, okay, what do I have? How can we make it work?
Exactly.
That's the brilliant aspect of this.
Yeah.
Sometimes I like when equipment, you know, when we do a live show or remote and something goes down or something isn't what I expected, because you do it to kind of on the fly think, how can I get this show up and running? You know, oh, this place doesn't have internet, even though they told us we do, because for some reason the managers assumed they had wireless internet now, and that's happened. I've gone somewhere, they're like, absolutely we have wireless internet. For like 2 months they said that. Show up and they're like, oh, I guess the computers are hooked up to the internet. Wirelessly or wired? Well, what's the difference? All right. So, you know, we had to hop on right then and you know, I had to turn on like the hotspot on my phone. I had to call my provider, and, you know, luckily this was like an hour before the show started. And like, we'll be ready in 15 minutes. So we were able to hotspot the thing up, and it wasn't a great place. So we had to tether that to another computer that was able to get it to our computer. And it's kind of fun because you do get to think on your feet. A microphone breaks down, an XLR cord goes out. God, I can't tell you. Fuck XL, fuck any cable whatsoever. This is 2013. There's no reason cable should exist.
If I can get my co-host to wrap cables right.
Oh my God. Do you teach them the face forward, flip back?
Yes, that.
Why
Somebody
can't
taught me that.
people
And I
figure
had
that
no
out?
idea what an XLR cable even was called. Just plug into a microphone and into this. That's all I knew. And then finally I learned this. And if my co-host runs one more cable.
Oh, trust me.
Oh, don't blame me.
But we,
Don't blame him.
But we produce a beer show as well. And one of those, the beer show I do first Friday of every month is, it's from this place called The Bottle Shop in Lower Greenville, and it's an actual bar. So we they're so gracious. They let us take over this whole bar for 2 hours on a Friday night. Wow. The problem is you still have people.
You broadcast from a bar on a Friday night.
We get free. Oh, the great thing is I haven't paid for beer in 4 months.
No. You broadcast from a bar on Friday night.
Oh yeah.
There has to be something that's gone wrong with that.
Oh man, let me tell you. Okay, first of all, there's times they have this big common table that we use to broadcast from. And one time we walked in, it even said reserved, because you know I know the owners and everything, and it said reserved right on it. And I had to buy the stupid table a bottle of champagne because they were so upset that they had to
fuck
move.
that.
Luckily, I told them to get them the cheapest champagne, and then the bottle shop complimented me on it. I didn't have to pay.
Just get some nice.
But we just were like, whatever. It was like a $12 bottle, you know. But yeah, just as equipment-wise, people walking in and out the doors, people stumbling over cords, people pulling down cameras, drunks. There's a difference between sitting in a studio and recording your own show and doing a live event where people are drinking copious amounts of alcohol. Holy, wait for it, fuck, is that annoying to deal with people that are trash. I mean, I can't count how many people, because I'm not on that show, I just produce it. I sit behind, I book all the guests, and I produce it, because one show with this beautiful mug on it is enough. You know, I can't give this away for free, you know. So I'm behind it, but I can't count how many people are like, What are you doing? Is it a show? Where are we recording from? Hey, I'm down here on Greenville. Yeah, is this going on there? Hey, y'all at home. That's like, good Lord, really? Like, we're doing a professional broadcast, and you will not believe the amount of people that will walk up and pick up a mic off the table and start talking into it. Watch, I think our third episode, there's maybe 5 minutes, I left it in, if something should have been cut, couldn't help it. This big old black lady comes over, takes the mic out of one of the co-host's hands, and just starts talking to the people on the street who wants to win prizes. I was like, you know what, this is gold. You can't write something. You can't write something like that. That's radio gold, man. And if I'm looking at the video camera pointing at this person, making an ass of themselves. You know, I was watching the ratings right then. Within like 2 minutes, you know, went up to like triple the amount of people that were watching. So all 3 people were having a good time.
Upload this clip to YouTube.
Yeah. Well, that's the best part is I don't know how a lot of podcasts work. We you know, we're only an hour show once a week, and we tend to. One of the things I found is people, especially with video, don't want to watch an hour. They'll watch if it's live because they feel like they're participating, but to go back later, unless they're like browsing the archives or something.
Are you kidding me? With us, I mean, with USG, I have people saying, "Oh yeah, I went back and listened to this episode from like April of 2010, and it was our weekly like buy this and don't buy that show."
Wow. See, I've never. What we found is. I don't know what it is. Most of our people watch during work. I do run analytics, so I get to see when people watch our stuff as well. And it's always during the day at work. Even though we run a show on Sunday, some people tune on Sunday, but more people watch our shows. I think we have like 5 times more people watch when we post stuff, you know, after it's done than we do watch live. So one of the things we learned is there's a perfect amount of time people will watch. If it's under 8 minutes, you're almost guaranteed to have every single person that sees that post click over on. It's between 8 to 12 minutes. A good amount of people watch it. Over about 12 minutes, people start getting a little, you go over 20 minutes, that's it. And there's a reason why most shows that aren't dramas, like comedies and stuff like that, are 20 to 22 minutes on television. That's about how long people want to be entertained for, as opposed to engaging in a story like a film or something like that. Most movies only have 5-10 minute long funny segments, and you kick into a dramatic story for a bit and you come back. And we found that the best way to really bring attention to our show is we cut out the interviews. You know, if we have an interview between 2 segment breaks, I'll chop that out, put that on YouTube under a playlist. You know, I'll take a review we do for, you know, some movie or something, a blooper, and put that under there. Those 2 clips will get 5 times as many hits as the entire video itself. Wow. Even though you're only adding an extra maybe like 10 minutes in for the bull crap, you know, the junk in between or the commercials and stuff like that. Oh, no commercials. In fact, I was going to say, Ben, I envy the fact that you get to run commercials. Because our station, Deep Ellum on Air, is switching over to taking on sponsors and clients. Before, it's always been people have had to pay to be broadcast on there. In fact, I was the first show that didn't have to pay to start broadcasting my show.
Ours is both.
Do you really?
Yeah, we do our own commercial time and we have to pay.
Oh, okay. See, my firm was the first one that didn't, just because I was able to bring some to the station. I'm the director of marketing over there, so luckily I get to broadcast for free. And I produce all my own shows so that I don't use any of the station's resources. But because we're wanting to switch over and start taking on sponsorship and advertisers now, man, it is, you know, it's almost great because, like you said, they can drop you if you don't keep your numbers up.
Yeah.
On the other hand, they've already got advertisers they can put you in a slot for, so they have money to kind of, you know, either hand off or work with, whereas we're kind of under this restriction of, you know, if we're not producing content, I can't even go out there and attempt to get a sponsor or an advertiser, and that's really difficult when you're trying to convince somebody to spend money on your show. You know,
if you don't have the numbers to back it up.
Yeah, that's why, you know, the first thing I did when I took over the marketing department there is It's me. It's me. It was me and another guy, and he got promoted to, like, you know, executive producer, and it's me. Wow. And, you know, I have a budget of like whatever I have in my pocket till I ask them to, you know, pay me back. But the first thing I did was I was like, so what are our numbers? All right, well, through analytics on, you know, immediately just started gathering numbers.
Yeah.
And it helps in 2 ways. One, if you're doing a good job, it's a little bit reassuring and it's something to take to sponsors and advertisers. 2, it helps you set a mark that, you know, okay, we're bringing in 3,000 people a month, 4,000 people a month. You know what? I want 6,000 a month. You know, I want 8,000 a month. And something else that I learned, because I kind of started off in television. I started off in television and films, and you learn a really interesting thing about in television. There's a reason they break things into seasons. And the reasons they break things into seasons is people will watch for about 2 to 3 months, and that's it. Like, does anybody out here have a band, a musical group they play with? All right, if you do, ask your friends to do have a band. You can invite your friends to one show, and they will come for that first show, all of them. You'll get 50 people there. Second show, you'll get 25 people. Third show, you'll get 5 to 10 people, and after the third show, no one will come again. And in a television show, they do seasons, so you get about 3 to 5 months of programming. It goes away for a while, and it comes back. In podcasts, the hardest thing to do is keep up your numbers.
Yes, it is.
So what we do, we try to do this, what's called rotational programming. They do it in radio and a couple other things. About every 3 months, you need to be out doing a live event, a remote, someplace where there's already a built-in audience that you're broadcasting from. Because after 3 months, your audience starts dwindling back down again. So about every 3 to 6 months, you need to be doing something fresh to draw in more. And then, of course, after 3 to 6 months, some of those people that dropped off come back in again. And the thing that really separates podcasting and radio, or anything you do every day or every week, as opposed to a television series where it goes off air, is you have to find a way to continuously bring in people over and over and over again. Where television, people are like, "Oh, the new season of The Office, I haven't seen it in 8 months. So I'm excited." And when you can listen to my show every Sunday, after 2 months, you don't care. You've heard all the jokes, you've heard all the opinions, you've heard all the stories.
That's why you keep coming up with new jokes.
No. I'm not going to work that hard on my show. That's not going to happen. But yeah, building a rotational audience is probably the biggest difference between this media format and a lot of others.
Okay. Hunter, how about you? What's changed for you since you started podcasting?
Well, when we started out, I mean, Stu and I started the Midnight Movie Cowboys just for ourselves, really. I mean, it was just a hobby, and it still is. But the main thing that's changed for us was when we started, it was just kind of, we would put out the shows whenever we wanted to. We didn't really, because again, we weren't thinking about audiences or anything. We just would kind of put it out there and throw it out to the ether. But in the past like half a year or so, we made some drastic changes. We gave our show a cup of Metamucil, and it comes out every fortnight. But you know,
Solid show.
yeah, it's a good solid show.
I'm sorry!
Another thing was on our early shows, we would kill ourselves every time with each show, just with preparation and trying to make it sound good and trying to, pack as much content into one show as possible. Whereas now we're a little more laid back. We sort of, it's a little more conversational, and we brought in third guy John Brace to, kind of supplement. So we kind of have, sometimes we'll have 3 guys, sometimes we'll have 2, but. We've changed our format considerably, but it's all just kind of, we haven't really done it. Our numbers have gone up since we've gone regular, obviously, but we still.
Why are you looking at me? God, I can't make 3.
I made the Metamucil joke, so it's I kind of opened the floodgates.
I know, really.
The diarrhea. But anyway, that's about the only major thing that's changed for us. I mean, we still consider it a hobby. Like Dana Gould says on his podcast, nobody's getting rich off this fucker. So.
Okay.
Roy, how about you?
Well, what's changed for me is, first of all, when I started into this thing, I had absolutely no idea how to edit anything. My background comes from film appreciation, so I literally had to self-teach myself how to edit audio, how to edit video and everything, and now I'm just, it's basically it's pre-programmed in me. I don't even realize that I'm doing it now, so that's changed with me. The main thing though, the 2 main things that has changed is, 1, becoming more open. I mean, I've always been pretty much a social butterfly, but now I'm an obnoxious social butterfly.
We love you for it.
Yes.
He's a bear with butterfly wings.
Yes. But one of the stars of the show that works with Sassy Cass, Extifer, he was intensely introverted. And when I finally talked him into doing the show, it helped him open up.
He's one of the funniest ones on the show.
Yeah, he's the star, he really is. And he's the one that's responsible for our disclaimer. And he has, it's basically taught him and the other people who have come into the fold of the show to, basically not be afraid to try something new and be more outgoing. Yeah. The other big thing I learned about our show is, as I've said, our show is not PC at all. It's intense, and there are things sometimes that comes out of the mouths of my co-hosts that
And you-
I'm in shock that it's coming out of their mouth.
Wait, you're blaming? Seriously? I've listened to your show.
All right, I'm guilty of it
You
too.
have no
but-
grounds to
I'm
accuse anybody
guilty of
else.
it too, yes.
Pot, kettle
But
black.
there's just
No
some
kidding.
stuff there's just some stuff that Extifer says sometimes where I'm literally pressing pause and I'm going, why did you just say that? We're going to lose an audience. Why are you saying
Okay,
that?
careful casting stones in that glass house.
So when we started the show out, we did not have a disclaimer at all. We just said in the description, this is an un-PC comedy show. And we had an episode once where Extifer did say the word, and I apologize for saying this word. He said darky on the show, and he used it. He used it.
I'm a black boyfriend, so it's okay if I say it.
He used it in a way that honestly wasn't comedic, and
Okay, that's just scary.
it got us. It got us a lot of hate mail, and it got to the point where we had to realize not only did we have to put a disclaimer before the show to explain to everybody, you know what, we're characters. This is not how we really are in real life. But it also had to make us realize what we can and cannot get away with on the show. I mean, it's amazing what we can and cannot get away with on the show, because we didn't get away with that, but we sure as hell got away with making a joke about how the Virgin Mary got fisted in her wound after baby Jesus was ripped out. And I didn't say that, that was Extifer.
How the hell does that sentence even get put together?
Ask Extifer, I don't know, that comes out of his
It's
head.
always the quiet ones.
Yes.
And I met Extifer, and he is the quiet one.
He is the quiet one. You put a mic in front of him and watch out, it's lethal. It's absolutely lethal. So the main thing is I've learned how far can you push somebody's button and when to rein it in. And there have been times I've had to press pause and say, come on,
Those
stop.
are extremely good instincts to develop.
Yeah,
Especially
definitely. I've learned editing. I've learned that I have bought more recording equipment in my life than I ever thought I would
See,
ever
I was
need
going to talk to
Right
you about
about
that. I was going to talk to you about that. I mean, I'm hearing everybody on here on this panel talking about all this equipment they bought and everything. I do my fucking podcast on an iPod.
So I mean, I was ready. I was ready to bring.
Taking a mineral?
Literally, I have a little iPod. I use the memo recorder on there. I feed it into to GarageBand and edit it. Boom, podcast
See, I
done.
gotta do video.
See, we have unlimited funds.
That's
That's what I'm saying.
Because I was going to use a Blue Yeti mic to record this today.
Oh, nice.
Shut up, Danger.
It would have picked everybody up, but then Stu from the Midnight Movie Cowboys was like, oh no, Mike, you have to get this, you have to get a mixer, you have to get the mics and all this stuff. So I went ahead and invested. It wasn't a bad investment. It was a lot cheaper than I expected.
And Stu really does sound like that.
And, yeah, he really does.
And you made a mistake listening to Stu.
Yes, I did.
What I always say is fact check everything Stu tells you to do.
So the thing about our stuff is we got gear and everything, but it's mostly because my brother-in-law, he worked on the show with us, and he's one of those guys where it's 110% or it's nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So he just pretty much, he went out and got all this gear, and this is where I make a confession to Danger, that camera in the back was paid for by Walking Dead #1.
This one right here.
Yeah, I sold my
This one
Walking
right
Dead
here.
#1 to get that camera.
Wow.
But it was one of those where, you know what, I actually enjoy doing
Don't
this.
wait.
It's a
Don't
hobby.
feel so bad for him yet. He's got another one.
But I mentioned I also obsessively buy things too.
But you know, I've learned a lot of editing on my own. I learned you know, what equipment to buy, what equipment not to buy. I've made some amazing friends because of the podcasts. I've made connections with people who podcast that I admire. So it's one of those things that it was very life-changing for me. I have a social life in a place where, you know, I moved from California. I had no friends when I first moved out here. So it's something that I've been able to network and make friends with people, even though chances are I'll never see them in person, but I get to talk to them every week.
You know, it's the other weird thing. Like we were at Dallas Comic-Con, our first outing, and our show used to be called the Untitled Super Cool Nerd Show, mostly because we thought that was funny at the time. And
Oh, no, wait a minute.
we didn't realize that it was going to actually be the damn name. until like we started.
Gotcha, I just realized I
Oh
did
crap!
it somewhere else.
We had no idea what to name the damn show, and
Yeah.
Danger came up with. We were just like joking around, the Untitled Super Cool Nerd Show, and then somehow that just snowballed into becoming the damn show name.
It kind of took off, and
then
it was a good title.
We
though.
ended up changing it though, just because I did listen to the Nerd Show, and we didn't want to be stepping on Ben's toes, but like somebody like approached me at a con,
We do want to.
and they actually asked, did I like have a beef? Like there's a podcast with beef. Like we're doing drive-bys in each other's studios. And I was like,
Drop the mic, yo!
I don't even know him, but anytime I've seen Ben, and yeah, before we get into I've seen Ben out at plenty of cons, and he's actually, I consider him a friend, and you guys even, the Nerd Show guys, they were at North Texas Comic Book Show, they sat in on one of our shows, which was funny, because they were like, there's no commercial break. I'm like, no, we're just here doing this thing. But they've sat in on our show, I've called in theirs and given them crap, because Ben can't transform an Optimus Prime.
Dude.
He cannot transform
What a
Optimus
child.
Prime. Calls you out.
What's interesting is
It was a fact.
when we took over our slot, there was another show at the station that had dropped out. Now, we didn't replace them. I don't know if it was, if you ever heard of Terror Comics or Terror Radio. Great guys, actually. I love the guys. But through some kind of miscommunication that happened, Wolfman and Charlie were under the impression that their show had been dropped to bring ours in. It was really weird. They were Thursdays at 6:30. I had never heard of their show. I had never met them. Up until then, I had never met Charlie or Wolfman back then, although we ended up having like, tons of friends together. And so when they asked me when would I like to do my show, I looked at my schedule and I had like one night free, Thursdays at 6:30. So when we started doing our show 3 weeks after they got canceled, I got so much hate mail from people that were like, you'll never be the Terror Radio Comics, you'll never be this and that. And it was interesting because I was like, awesome, we had ratings right off the bat. Like, I was like, that's awesome, we had a built-in audience who were just watching us that would have been much harder to do. And so we actually did a bit on the show where if you ever know Wolfman or Charlie, they wear the sunglasses indoors, the baseball caps, and they have these biker gloves with the fingers cut off. And so we dressed up just like them, and we read hate mail on the show.
I think I'm gonna start doing that on my show.
Yeah, so we read the hate mail, but then what we did was they were saying things like, I can't believe you guys are doing, a show about comics. That's so, and what's weird is our first episode happened to be about comics, just because the new series had come out I liked. But really, like I said, the show was about anything I liked. So it wasn't gonna be a comic show. And so we're reading these reviews or hate mail, and it's like, I can't believe y'all are doing a show about comics. That was Terror Radio. Terror Radio like pioneered that, which is obviously bullshit. I mean, yeah. And
the only people who talk about comic books. Right?
Yeah. So we would, we would do something like that. And so we wrote these fake letters too. By like Peter Venkman writes. I had a teacher in the 3rd grade that used to use pieces of glass inside wire frames perched on her nose to be able to see better. I see at least 200 people on your show wear glasses. How dare you? So we would read real hate mail interspersed with absurd ones we had made up, and it was great in pointing out how absurd these people are. You'd read a legitimate one about you guys, I can't believe you guys are doing a comic show, and then you read one about, I can't believe you guys use glasses. My grandmother used to use glasses. Get be original. And it just totally destroyed like any hatred, and a bunch of the people that sent us hate mail, like the next show, were like, okay, we tell you what, that was really fucking funny. Like, you really ripped us a new one. And we ended up keeping fans over that. And what's funny is I met Mike and Charlie later, and I said, did y'all see the bit where we made fun of you guys as getting the hate mail? And Mike goes, yeah, you're a dick. And Charlie goes, that was really fucking funny.
That was another thing that we actually had to learn with SassyCast, was in the beginning, we took criticism really too hard, a little too much. And because of doing that, it pretty much, for a time period there, kind of ruined the gumbo that we had going. And then when we got a really, 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 really ridiculous email once about how we were absolutely wrong with something that we officially declared a theory. I don't even remember what the theory is now.
Is it evolution?
No, I don't even remember what it is now. But all I know is just this ridiculously long 3-page equivalent email about how we were wrong, which we read on the show and laughed at. Perfect. And we realized, you know what? Fuck them. We're going to do what we want. And
that's why I answer all my hate mail at like 2 a.m. after I've been drinking a little bit. Because usually, well, fuck you.
See, now every
roll it over.
Every hate mail that we get now, we now answer with the same standard 2-word response. That's nice.
Yeah. See, I love my hate mail because when I do get it, I don't write it drunk. Although here's what I like to do. I like to write drunk, like Hemingway said, write drunk, edit sober. So I'll write the shit out of a hate letter back to them. The next day I'll be like, no, instead of pussy cunt, I could probably just call her mom a whore.
Oh my God.
I'll craft this but what I really like to do is I love sending back really sweet, lovely, insulting to their intelligence letters. So when they get it, they're like, God, this guy seems really nice. Maybe I am an idiot. Maybe I am a fool. And those always seem to get a better response. Not only do they tend to watch later because I don't offend them, but usually they'll write back and they'll say like, yeah, maybe I was wrong about that. Now there's 2 types of winning arguments. There's where you yell and scream so much the other person walks away because they don't want to fight with you. And there's really what's winning an argument, getting the other person to agree with you. And there's nothing better than having somebody that hates you be like, we've had people that hated us, so I invited them on the show, and they're like, oh, really? Okay, I'll come sit here. Come sit in the audience.
See,
I thought you hated the show. Oh, well.
We're lucky. We don't get email at all.
Danger, you should get all the email, by the way.
I do.
On our show, we have a character whose name is Mike, who is
Mike is awesome.
Mike is the soft-spoken one of the show.
The hell he is?
What? Out of everybody else, yes, he is. We jokingly call him our domestic.
Poor Mike.
Yeah, poor Mike. He is the subject matter of all abuse. But it was his idea for us to call him the domestic and make all the jokes about Lemon Pledge with him. And we got an email once complaining about how we were being, so subjective and objectifying to Latin people. And my response was, did you not listen to our disclaimer? And I've grown pleasure out of pointing out things like that to people. I'm like, you know what? We distinctively have a massive disclaimer at the beginning of the show saying that this is un-PC. If you don't like it, press power off now. So because you listened, it's your fault.
I like the idea that you don't just tell people to not play your show. You actually want them to power down their device.
Yes, we tell them
turn off your computer.
Turn off your computer. Yes.
All right. Favorite guest on your shows?
Who?
Mark.
Who?
Mark.
Great
story
favorite
ever
guest.
told.
Mark Walters from Dallas Comic Con. That guy's awesome. He told the best Stan Lee story ever. Like basically Stan Lee went to Hooters and hilarity ensued. It was awesome, and he sat in on the whole show. Yeah, that was definitely probably my favorite guest.
Okay.
So.
Mine would have to be Nakia from The Voice. We got to interview him about a year and a half before we even knew he was going on the show. And this was when he was just a struggling artist. And then we got a real candid interview from, just someone from the Austin music scene. And then the next thing you know, he's on a nationwide television show. And then I found out to be the only podcast to have an interview with him after The Voice.
Oh, wow.
So we were very lucky to have that, and it was awesome to hear behind the scenes stories about after he was able to talk about it, behind the scenes stories about what happened on the show. So he's definitely my favorite.
Jim Hill of Jim Hill Media, Disney historian, fantastic guy, really nice guy. Always has a story, and he's the kind of Disney guy that when you ask him a question, you just let him roll.
Just sit in the back seat.
Yeah, just sit in the back seat and let him drive, because otherwise he'll go off on tangents that you never thought you'll ever hear. And he's got some great stories.
Well, thanks to him, I learned that Charles was originally going to be part of the Fox and the Hound. So.
That's true.
Yeah, interesting enough, because like I said, I studied film and stuff in college, and I focused in documentaries, and one of the rules in documentaries is never ask a yes or no question. And I've really taken that into carrying that over into interviews.
What's horrible about that is that if you have the wrong type of person, they can turn whatever question you have into a yes or no.
Well,
answer.
that's right.
I don't know.
Right, and they will do that. They're like, if you ask your, wife, so how was your day? And she's like, we're getting a divorce. I don't understand why you care. Yeah, there are people that can shut it down.
Oh, man.
But and you will get those people, and you also get people that you have to learn how to wrangle them in. Okay, that's great. I'm going to stop you right there. We're going to take a quick break. And you got to kind of just cut them off. But the rule in documentary is never ask a yes or no question. And I remember having edit this footage that this other guy shot in class. He was a fucking moron. He couldn't edit for anything. So I was being nice. I told him I would edit his footage for him. And he was interviewing this vet from World War II, and the guy started going off on this amazing story, you know, about how they were down in the trenches, and they actually, like, one of the guys ran out of ammo, so they were sharing ammo from one guy's gun. He's like, oh, hold on. My question was about, and then pulled the guy off this amazing story and was like, no, I was asking about when you first went, and I'm like, you fucking retard, you just ruined an amazing moment in this documentary. This
I hear him kill people.
Yeah, and, you know, and so that's where you're talking about it, go off in tangents you weren't thinking of, is you have to learn when to read that moment. You know, if somebody's telling you something that's getting really boring, go ahead and you know, steer the river, throw a pebble and steer the river the other direction. But if, you know, if they're, you know, if you ask them, so how long have you been playing, you know, the steel guitar? You know, and they're like, well, actually, my father taught me the steel guitar, and they start going off about their father. Shut the fuck up and let them talk about their father who's this famous musician or something. Don't always try to steer it everywhere, and that's a hard thing, definitely.
Because you never know what kind of a gem you're gonna.
You walk in with your 5 questions, and then you answer a question, and you do follow-ups.
Yeah.
It's a conversation.
And the other thing I ask them to always say is like, look, I'm gonna ask you these 5 questions. Who are you? What do you do? How long have you been doing it? Why do you do it? How can I make money from it? You know, and that's usually about the 5 questions that I do. How can this work for me? Find out how it can tie in. But then I always tell them this: send me 5 questions you want me to ask you. And that's more interesting because what that allows them to do is, I kind of get that trick from David Letterman, but what that allows them to do is, if they want to talk about the history of their musical instrument because they're knowledgeable about it. You know, when I interviewed the ocarina girl, I had no idea that her husband and her were, you know, ocarina aficionados. They own an ocarina that's 180 years old. They own a couple.
What the hell? What? Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Made out of bone?
No,
That's impossible. Legend of Zelda came out in
1986.
I believe it was a flute though.
There were no
didn't make
ocarina
an
at that,
appearance
yes.
until time.
Nintendo 64.
So yeah, until Nintendo 64. But you know, and that was interesting because if I just asked her about, you know, and after the interview today, she even said like, you know, hey, thanks for asking about my instrument and not about the fact that I'm cosplaying as Zelda. You know, and she said everybody else that had asked her was like, so tell us about why you're Zelda. How long have you played Zelda? You know, and I guess I'm a musician, so it was natural for me to be like, so what type of instrument is it? Is it a resonator? Is it a pipe instrument? Obviously it's not reed. How do the fingerings work? And she was, I don't have to play all the boring parts for everybody.
You're a music nerd
But
too.
but she was so much more excited to talk about how the instrument works, why it works, what the history was, how many different, you know, when they were showing all the different varieties of them, they were so much more excited that, yeah, I can play some Zelda songs, you know, but her knowledge of the instrument was so much greater than having a few songs stuck in her head, you know, from some video games. She had real knowledge and a collection of real instruments. And so we went from that to like, well, would you like to come in studio and have an actual like half hour to talk about this instrument that a lot of people know if they're video games, but I was fascinated by what I sat in on their panel, you know?
Oh yeah, I mean, sometimes, you know, that happened one time when, I fortunately didn't record it. I had a conversation with Henry Thomas, and
Recordings or it didn't happen?
Recording, and you know, everyone's always talking about, you know, what was it like playing LAPT and blah blah blah. And I asked him about Psycho 4 at the beginning. It turned into an hour-and-a-half conversation, which then suddenly turned into, I get phone calls from Henry Thomas on my birthday every year. So I mean, it's amazing how
Yeah. Some of the friendships you make are pretty interesting.
Yeah. How about Hunter? Favorite guest on your show?
Rick, of course.
You're already on the panel.
Hey, Hunter, you got some brown on your nose.
He's taking the 2-knee approach.
Oh,
No. Well, our favorite.
Wow.
I felt bad for that one.
Our favorite guest was a guy named John Grace, and we liked him so much we made him a 3rd member. So he did this. He was kind of a personality in Colorado radio, doing lots of like characters on terrestrial radio. Like he did like an Alex Jones parody named Richard Lococo.
Oh God.
and he does like a lot of characters, but he also has like this knowledge base that is just scarily huge, like about pop culture, and he's probably the most macho, intimidating nerd I've ever met.
I usually get called that. I lift server cabinets at work.
Favorite guest, Jason?
Favorite guest? I understand. Mark Walters.
Okay.
Jason, how about Tommy Telegraph?
Oh, that was awesome. Yeah, we went out to cover Video Games Live. Tommy Tellerico is a video game composer, been 20 years in the business. That guy was the best interview we've ever had. He is just so high energy, like throughout the whole video. It was just awesome. He almost seems a little mad, but you know, that kind of creativity, probably. Wow. Yeah, Video Games Live was probably our best event to cover, just because the beauty of Video Games Live was the band, the orchestra was actually composed of Richardson High School students, the best of the best, and they floored us. They did a Russian opera to the Tetris theme. They composed a Russian opera to the Tetris theme. And teenagers! I couldn't even say I did anything like that as a teenager besides screw up and get beat down by my parents, you know? I composed a Russian opera. I got drunk and came home and got my ass kicked by my dad.
All right, winner.
It was deserving, you know?
I was gonna say my favorite guest was, you know, we've been privileged to have a lot of people from different industries and from, you know, we have musicians and burlesque and fire performers and comic book writers and stuff, but the most interesting one was this little girl named Reese. And she's
I know what you're talking about.
You know what I'm talking about?
The Shadow Cat.
Yeah.
That kid
she's amazing.
Yeah, that kid's pretty awesome.
What's the deal?
She was the little crying angel, Dave. You've seen her walking around, not the big one, but the little crying angel.
Yes.
And she's very quiet, very, very reserved, until you're like, pose for the camera, and then she's like,
and then she just turns it on.
She
the
like
charm.
has this switch where she goes from being this introverted little kid
I know what you're talking
to,
about.
yes.
I got to interview her at Sci-Fi Expo when she was just a Shadow Cat.
Yes.
And it was this, I was amazed by that kid.
Yeah,
It's like,
and you know
wish
what's
my
interesting
children
is
grew up
Taffeta
like
met
this.
her at that too, and she's like, she called me and she was like, hey Del, who do we have scheduled for this show? And I was like, well, no one, I've probably been drinking too much this weekend, so I'm not scheduling anybody, you know? And she was like, well look, you know, I want to bring on this girl Reese. I met her at the Sci-Fi, and she kind of, you know, blew me away, but I only got to talk to her for like 5 minutes, you know, I'd like to bring her on the show. So we call her up, and, you know, and she's doing this work with this charity called Super Six, and I was like, okay, well, you know, we can give a little bit of time. We're supposed to review this comic book called Nazi Werewolves from Outer Space by Trauma Comics. Which if you haven't heard, it's pretty fun. And it's very pulp. And but we ended up rolling so well that we cut the review because I wanted to talk to her.
Yeah.
You know, for an hour.
How
And
did
luckily
you
Simon
guys
Sanchez
really-
was cool with. I actually called him on one of the bracelets. Like, hey man, we're gonna push your review back a week. He's like, no, I'm watching the show. Bump it back.
how did it deviate from a regular show having like a 12-year-old on though?
Well, see, that's the thing is, we did agree that we'd be polite and we would kind of tone it down and everything. And then when we got there, her mom was like, "You can if you want to." She watches movies that I won't watch. You know, she's seen like RoboCop like 5 times and quoted. She's a big Paul Goring fan. And, but she was so interesting because, you know, at 9 years old, she plays in a band. She does cosplay. She makes her own costumes. But she started a charity. Her friend got cancer recently. And she got put in the hospital for about 6 weeks. And she would go and visit her and realize that her friend didn't have anything to do in the hospital. And her friend's parents were stuck there for days at a time with nothing to do. So they reached out to this group called Wipe Out Kids Cancer. And they said, look, you know, is there anything we can do as kids? And they said, well, look, if you start putting these things together called buddy bags, you know, we'll help start getting them in hospitals. So Reese and her friends, these other 5 girls, went out and just started going all fucking over Dallas. They got bins put in Titan, they got bins put in, you know, Zeus Comics, they got them put in
This
Keith.
kid will put each one of us to shame about what she's accomplished at 9.
I'm telling you, if you haven't, like, I'm not gonna say go watch every episode of my show, even though it's probably one of the best things you'll ever see. But watch the one with Reese, because I mean, you can watch the segment clip. If you go to the DelOLshow.com, there's a segment. But I actually recommend watching the entire show. It's one of the first shows.
Featured on the news once.
Yeah, that was one show where I shut the hell up and let that person talk because she had done way more than I ever will with my life. She liked people way more than I will.
Yeah.
You know, and to see her, and what's great after that is, you know, she asked, you know, I asked, is there anything our show could do to help you? And now I've gotten into, I do their website for free. You should never offer anything free to charity. But yeah, so I redo their website now. We have a collection box set up at the station. We're working with a couple of other places, permanent ones set up, and now we're kind of working with them. And so I guess as a guest, I mean, she kind of changed how the show was operated, you know, how I acted as a host, and what we did before and after, doing
At least for that one, right?
Right.
She doesn't grow up to be president. There's something
I'm telling you.
Yeah,
you
if this
watch
kid
episode-
rules me when I'm older, I'm okay with that.
Yeah. I mean, when she came in, they had at one end of the table where she was, we're in our temporary studio now in Highland Park. And I hope Jedi's not listening, but I hate that place. I like the one better, and I like the new place a lot better. But the temporary one is just, it's tiny, it's confined. But she brought in this giant thing that said wormholes in Einstein. How does it work? And for her science project, she at 9 years old,
9 years old.
she had discussed, she was talking about Einstein's special and general theory of relativity, Einstein-Rosen bridges, and how they're related to the TV show Doctor Who. And she's like, basically, there's two
Meanwhile, you
types.
have 9-year-old boys sitting there talking about this is Doctor Who.
Yeah. She's talking about, we're talking about there's different types of shows. There's different types. She's like, you can travel through time or you can travel through space. There's shows like Doctor Who, you can travel time and space. And I did trip her up though. I said, can you explain to me the difference between Einstein's general theory of relativity and special theory of relativity? And she goes, I don't know. I was like, that's right, you dumb kid. I did explain that.
However,
I actually called her that. She's so great about her personality too, because I was like, that's right, dummy. I know that. And her mom just like cracked up.
The thing
So
is that she'll
funny.
come back on your school next year and school you on.
Oh, I guarantee it. Yeah. But I gotta say, she blew me away for what a kid can do that isn't like an actor kid. She's just some nobody in Dallas. But what's weird is I barely described her, and 2 people on this panel already knew who the hell she was.
Yeah.
From having
And
met
when
her.
she rules this world,
I'm
and
telling
when
you,
paid
she
for
will.
the college
Dude,
she
I
went.
left that day, I went home and I actually sat down and
And
didn't
now
drink
punish
as
the
much
devil.
that day, going, I got so much video to edit, and I gotta go to record a little bit, and I called up my friends, like, scheduled a recording session for the band. I was like, I gotta start doing more stuff with my life. This 9-year-old is whipping my ass.
She is definitely a shining example of a person that you meet that will literally change your outlook on life.
Yeah, no
she is
kidding.
definitely one of those people.
And so that would definitely put her up there. And you gotta give her credit to her parents too. When I met her mom, I mean, she's treating her kid right. She lets her kid watch. They have a rule: you can watch good movies. And that
Yes,
was-
I'm parenting right.
So she can watch
Twilight is banned.
So she's not allowed to watch Twilight, but she can watch RoboCop. She can watch Eraserhead, but she can't watch something stupid like Teletubbies. And that's a cool way to go. I asked her favorite book. For a 9-year-old, Wrinkle in Time is not really a bad book.
No, it's not.
That's a pretty good one.
Yeah.
So yeah, and
As
her
long
mother
as she doesn't develop Dakota Fanning's attitude, it'll
Yeah.
be cool.
But she's just she puts the rest of us to shame, honestly. And now she's starting a blog. She already has 400 people
I'm done.
on her. I think she hasn't even put up a post yet, and she has like 400 people that are signed up.
good
on her
Lord.
blog.
Oh my God.
So
Wow.
I'm gonna bring her in as a consultant.
We're the dog and the Beatles down here.
Do I?
We're the
You
dog
know what?
and
I think that
Beatles.
that officially pales in comparison to you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks.
Thomas' favorite guest.
Oh, wow. We've had her on twice, per Kayla. If you
Oh,
know.
yeah.
Oh yeah,
Kayla.
for Kayla.
She tried out for the
Kayla.
second season of Who Wants to Be a Superhero,
Yeah,
Stan Lee's
Really?
reality show.
Yeah.
You know
Yeah.
And then she was on the internet show, and she won that.
that? Huh.
You talk about having 5 questions for your guests. With Perkayla, it's 1. What's been going on? 2 hours later, you go, okay, we probably need to shut this down.
What I love about Michaela is that she's so sweet, she's so nice.
You can't help but stop and listen to her.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
And she always has a great story about her cats and just great. She's so funny. She's just so witty. And one of the people that I hold responsible for bringing me out of my proverbial box and like actually out of my comfort zone to go and talk to celebrities and stuff like that. It was because of her that I got to interview a couple people from Who Wants to Be a Superhero.
Yeah.
I got to interview the Diffuser, the winner of season 2. And then I found out that later on he became a total douchebag, but that's neither here nor
That was
there.
a
Polar
super
opposite, yeah.
But yeah, hats off to Michaela. That's
She's an
I
absolute
Yeah.
sweetheart. I love
Well,
her.
if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't have met you. So
That's true.
I've been her
That's
better
true.
for that as well.
I really became Perkayla's friend. I mean, I'd seen her at a lot of conventions before. I didn't know that she was on any of these shows. And just every time I would walk by, she'd be like, "Hi!" You know, like, I'd be like, "Oh, hey, cat lady," you know. And after like 2 or 3 years, it became, you know, a real thing where I'd actually look forward to seeing her. And then last year, there was this dog that was thrown out of a car on a highway. The Airship Isabella brought the dog in. Do you
Oh,
remember
that's
this?
cool. Yeah, I know
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
I ended up fucking adopting that dog, but
Awesome.
no, screw it. That dog's a bastard.
It's your bastard now.
their side, I have no pity for her. But if you hang out one day with her and you see how that dog is. But anyway, this, she was a puppy at the time. I think she was like 4 weeks old. And but she had mange, ticks, fleas. She had been, she had been like a kennel dog, so she'd been right up against the dogs. And they threw her out, so she was missing a big chunk of skin off her back. And I said, look, if nobody else adopts her, I'll adopt her by the end of the convention. And
she talked to
you bastards, none of you adopted her. I got stuck with her. But I took her home, we took her to the vet, and Perkayla and a couple of other people said, look, if there's anything we can do, let us know. So I just put a posting on Facebook, hey, I took the dog to Metropause. Here was the bill. The bill ended up a little bit more than I thought. I paid what I could that day and I got out. If anybody wants to help, feel free to just call in. It was like a $400 vet bill. Like, they had to do everything to this freaking dog. They said it was like, 24 hours away from death, from starvation and stuff. So they kept it there for the entire night. And I call up, maybe like 10 hours later, I get a call from the vet, and they're like, oh, it's totally paid off. I'm like, what? Who? And they're like, 3 people called in and paid it off. Perkayla paid off like $150.
What?
Just because she knew the dog, she saw how beat up it had been. And I didn't ask her about anything like that. And then a couple of other people chipped in like 75 and 80.
She is like a genuinely nice person.
She is honestly
She submitted something for a segment we did called Geek Confessional. And I didn't realize she was listening to the show, but I was like, doing my preaching voice there. And then our next confession comes from Purr. I call her Purr. And like the next day, she like sends me this message and just like, I like that name. And I was like, she's just such a nice person.
Yeah.
You can't help but be drawn in by her personality.
Like her.
When, from 20 feet
You
away,
can't,
you're
it's
gonna-
impossible.
Well, from 20 feet away, you're going like,
Charm,
creepy cat, like, you're making fun of your friends.
Until
You
she pounces out and
Yes.
attacks you like how
You
I
get
met
within
her,
5
so.
feet of her, you're like, that's the sweetest woman ever, and she is.
She really is.
It's because of her I was able to go around my neighborhood and look for my then lost cat, and she really helped us out. And, it was. She's
She
the
cares
one
about animals that aren't even her own, and that's what's really nice. To find out somebody had just dropped that much money for no reason, had no reason to do that whatsoever.
And there's a reason why she's the official superhero of the United States of Geekdom.
Nice.
So,
It still allowed me to buy my cocaine that week.
Ben, favorite guest.
How am I supposed to follow any of this?
Seriously? Just name drop the hell out of people.
That's all you've left me with is name
Just like
dropping.
Mark Miller and run with it. Come on, bring it up.
Actually, I think the coolest interview we ever did was Lamb Chop.
Oh!
Like Sherry
Mallory
Yes.
Lewis.
Wow.
Sherry
Yes,
Lewis's
he
daughter.
did.
That one was fun.
I got invited to skip my graduation to go see the show from her.
Yeah, she actually did graduate. Well, no, you actually felt up Lou Ferrigno though.
That's true.
Yes!
You
She told the story on our show.
I don't know.
Please tell that story how she broke Lou Ferrigno.
Yeah, she took.
God!
I said, obviously Lou is a pretty large man.
Is he down there though?
And Christy.
Well, he's like six. What is he like? 6'7"?
So how firm? I
Extremely.
excuse me, I'll be right back.
Roy's
I had a moment.
happy tonight. He's gonna be dreaming all night tonight now.
It was quite
It's going to give Hulk Smash a whole new.
There's
meaning.
She basically arm cuffed Lou Ferrigno's butt.
It's gonna be a green mess in the morning.
You just made a deposit in the spank bank. Yes, yes, deposit in the bank of spank.
Lily Tomlin was a sweetheart as well.
Oh, nice.
Who else did we? Billy Boyd was cool. Felicia Day was really cool.
Yeah.
Sherry was awesome. Sherry Lee was really cool too.
Shirley Lee was one of those inspiring people.
Well, and Krista McGuire is too. She's been on the show many times. Who else have I not name dropped?
Wow.
I can't think. I've been looking at these guys the entire time. It doesn't rule me.
Lime juice.
Aaron Gray was a sweetie.
Aaron Gray was amazing.
Aaron
Gray and
Cindy Morgan. Cindy Morgan was probably the most fun. Because you're like, Cindy, microphone on, go. Just
We
rocks
got
it.
what? Cindy Morgan.
We got like
40 minutes out of Cindy Morgan.
Yeah, about 35 minutes out of Cindy Morgan.
She's
She's
so
great.
sassy.
Yeah.
I love it.
Let me tell you
She's
about
a trip.
Bill
At the Sci-Fi
Jimmy.
Expo, at the Sci-Fi Expo, she was having a battle with Bruce Boxleitner to see who could post the most embarrassing photo of each other on Twitter.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. We actually got her to tweet an unreleased photo on Twitter. When we bumped her from the show, she's got like this vampire look from her Tron outfit, and she posted. It was like, "This is the nerd show. This is for getting bumped. This is for getting bumped." Like, how the hell can you bump us? And, it was great. It was great doing like a whole back and forth with her that whole week leading up to Sci-Fi Expo. She was really fun. James Callis. James Callis is really cool too. He is a stand-up guy. He fought for us a little bit.
So much more better guests than we had.
Well, that's what you've left me with here. You've got all these inspiring stories.
We take all the good crummy people and just left
little
with
girls.
this.
And I'm like, I must name drop all of my people now.
There's one show that I can't remember the name right now that I listen to. The Critics Show podcast.
Right.
And he interviewed Charles Grodin, and he asked Charles Grodin about his affair with Miss Piggy. And Grodin went off on this 10-minute tirade about the affair with Piggy and how she kept calling him and he kept not returning her calls.
Whoa.
And it was
He is the desperate one.
it was just the most deadpan, hysterical thing I've ever heard. And it was hilarious, downright hilarious.
Now just imagine it in Charles Grodin's voice.
Now, I have two more questions. One having to do with the podcasting, and the other one just my little geeky pleasure question. This final podcasting question: have you ever thought about just not doing this anymore?
That's gonna be so fun to edit.
Oh hell, all of this is going on. That's fun.
Rick knew what he was getting into by having Roy on.
I know it's getting into.
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and go with that. Hell no.
No?
I love this. I'm never stopping. I don't care. I'm doing this as long as I can.
I'm gonna ride this whore until it dies, because I have a blast doing it. Yeah, I'm involved with a lot of podcasts now. I mean, when I got started, I didn't even think that I would stay afloat with one, and now I'm involved with 3, and it's just a blast. I have an absolute blast doing it. There's no way in hell to stop.
I'll go the opposite way with that. I love the feeling of accomplishing something after it's done. I like going home. I like putting on my TARDIS robe. I like pouring a glass of scotch and the left-hand milk stout or some Guinness, having one in each hand, putting on DuckTales, and doing fucking nothing for the rest of the night because I did my show already.
Yeah.
Now, that's the best feeling. I hate the hour before the show where I'm like, I gotta wake up at 11 or noon. I gotta put on pants.
You're complaining about waking up at noon.
I gotta drive there, you know? Then I gotta sit and listen to these people that, sure, I wanna be their friends. That doesn't mean I wanna hang out with them in some other place. But,
First world problem.
yeah, exactly. But no, it's like, I guess I'm that type of person. It's like, I do stuff because I hate feeling like I haven't done anything. But I can't enjoy my relaxing time. I can't enjoy my downtime if I don't feel I've earned it. And it's really weird. Sometimes, you know, like with my band, we'll go out and we'll do something. I don't want to rehearse for 3 or 4 hours a night, but if I'll sleep better that night. And it's not the 3 or 4 hours. I mean, we needed it. We should have done it. You know, when I sit down to plan out my shows, I don't do it as much anymore. When I first started, like you were saying, I overplanned. I booked every freaking minute of the show. But I can come home and I can say I did that, and I can feel better about taking the break. You know, if I want to sit down and play video games or watch TV and I did nothing all day, I only can get. I guess my mind is. I don't know what it is. I can't go more than. If I do more than a day of not accomplishing something, I gotta do something. I gotta edit music. I gotta edit a video. I gotta write a script. I have to do something so that later that night when I sit down and I want to jerk off, or I want to, you know, have my girlfriend watch me while I jerk off or something like that. I don't feel.
I'm the one that's drinking on this panel. Right?
Well, you know,
we
we had to get a heterosexual comment in here because I think I've gated up enough.
Well, I'll let my boyfriend watch too if you want. But he thinks running the camera while she's she's running audio. Trust me, you want somebody running different from audio than camera. You don't want the same person, whether it's a sex tape or whether it's a good interview. You always want a separate person on audio than video.
And you broke Roy.
No, because
that is a feat that is.
No, because now I have this image of like your girlfriend running mic, and then I'm seeing this.
Hey, does this help? She's black with short hair and she has a Zimbabwean accent.
Well, not only that, but now I have this image of a guy holding a camera going, harder!
But I'm gonna second your
Clearly, I
sentiment.
haven't drank enough Hispanic.
Because like, but the work itself sucks. I don't want to go work in a Detroit car factory plant, but I sleep better at night knowing I paid for my family to have a house.
Yeah.
Same thing, you know. I like making the connections. I like talking to people. I like feeling like I'm important for an hour, even though I have a podcast that who fucking knows about. But you know, it's the afterwards feeling like you did something. You know, you're not just wasting away on this planet.
Good.
Well, yeah, I was going to second that sentiment. I mean, it feels good to, you know, do something and put it out there, and you get a sense of satisfaction from it. I mean, I have a real motor. I don't like having idle time.
What explains the Don Bluth episode that we recorded
Well,
back in May?
you know what? That was a nightmare.
Ago.
That was a nightmare to edit because we had to edit out all your ums.
I've had to do that with many speakers.
Hunter, you dropped the ball there. It can turn into a drinking game.
No, they'd be dead by the end of that episode.
Exactly.
No, but it just feels good to put something out there. But you know, it's also nice to just talk movies with somebody because I don't really have that in my normal day-to-day life. So it's just
wrong.
Yeah, I know. No, seriously.
Well, that's true. It's like the same reason I guess if I was a professional musician, I wouldn't be dealing with musicians all day, so I wouldn't feel like I have to schedule band practice or go out and record singles.
Yeah.
But because I don't, I have to create an environment almost artificially that I'm getting together with some other people that want to do this, and I'm giving myself time to focus on that aspect of my hobbies. And you know, with the podcast, I get to focus for an hour a week, you know, where you can prep a little bit for the show, but I can just not only read a book or a comic book or watch a film and just watch it and turn it off. Now I have to go, well, I'm reviewing Looper. So it makes me more, and it makes me appreciate the art more as well. Now I watch stuff going, I've got to defend that. I've got to explain why I hate that movie. I've got to explain why I like it.
You carry it with you afterwards.
Yeah, exactly.
And you know, I used to blog a lot, so I did that a lot. And now, like, my only outlet really is the podcast. So, you know, it kind of focuses on that. But there's a lot of catharsis in it. So, I mean,
and it also builds your interest too. I think, you know, I like comic books, but I don't think if I was doing a show that also looked at comics and movies and films. I mean, I'll probably always love films. I wanted to get into that forever. But like, for instance, I do that beer show. You know, I like good beer, as I'm sure most of us do. Most people prefer a good beer over a bad beer. But I'll tell you what, when we started doing the show, I just had one local nano brewer on. It was a friend of mine. I got my roommate, who's awkward as hell on camera. And man, I love awkward on camera. I'm one of those people that I love radio silence. I love awkwardness. I love pulling back that curtain. And so we got him and a couple of other people on the show. We were just doing a show from the bottle shop that was just about beers, nothing special. But a few people started watching it, some of the local breweries started catching wind of it, and these guys called the Dallas Brew Scene watched it, and they were like, hey, you guys are great, but you know, could we ever come on and have like just one segment where we talk about craft beer? And that segment shot way the fuck out of me. People, they had thousands of fans, so boom, people were watching it, and then all of a sudden people that weren't their fans were like, wow, that was really interesting. And so the show started to become more focused on good beer, local breweries. Now we have a 6-month waiting list for breweries in Dallas in Texas and Dallas that want to be on the show. Lakewood Brewery's coming on next month, Community's coming on the month after that.
Cool, my show's focus is wrong.
Yeah. It is great. But I mean, you know, we brought on this girl called the Texas Brunette who had connections all over the beer world. The Dallas Brewing guys had connections. And all of a sudden now, I can't walk into a fucking beer store without going, I gotta get something I haven't tried, and I've had an IPA, and I've had a porter this week. I guess I better grab a milk or cream stout. And it's weird because like doing the show that I had a mild interest in all of a sudden has like bounced back that now I'm not consumed with it, but you know, I care about beer now. Like I'm a
beer snob.
Yeah, Now don't get me wrong, if I go to a party and I'm not having to pay and someone has to pay a Bud Light, I'm down in that sucker. I'm not gonna do that.
All right, we're running short. Thomas, have you ever considered not doing this?
No. I love the conversation. Even if the conversation falls into a ditch 1,000 times. I just love the camaraderie. I love talking. So no, I just can't see me not doing it.
All right. Ben?
Hell no. No, we're going till the end, and I'm gonna ride it all the way down. And not only have I inspired myself to do something like this, I've inspired 3 other people. And that to me is, every week I crack the mic, it's crazy insane that somebody, else believes in the same idea I have.
Yeah, that's the crazy part to me. Why are these other people going along with my idea?
Yeah.
Because it's awesome.
Yeah.
For me, never. No, I've never considered it. I've had like a brief second of it where I'm like, I'm not spending time with the family, blah blah blah. No, I'm spending enough time with the family. I'm doing all my editing when between shifts at work, so that's not a problem. I can find the time to do this.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of doing that. So yeah, no, I have never had the thought about ending the show at any point ever. So, but yeah, okay, that's the Podcaster Summit.
Thank you for having us on the show.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
thank you
very much.
Thank you for like hitting me with a storm of response saying yes, I'll do it. So I was expecting to. When I cast this wide a net, I was expecting 3 or 4 people. I got 9 or 10, so it was
lack of faith.
You do understand this is an ego-based medium, right? That's the only reason we're all wanting to do this. I'll take money out of my own pocket to produce my voice being heard.
But yeah, thank you so much, guys, and yeah, I think I'll just go ahead and forego my geeky question. So yeah, we'll save that for another time. So yeah, definitely. Thank you guys so much once again. Yeah, that's the show.
What's the geeky question?
Yeah.
What geeks you out?
Transformers.
Masturbating.
DuckTales.
Really,
DuckTales, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
And I got all of that.
really awful movies that people should not like.
Manos.
Like
Okay.
the
Hands of Fate.
Saw the riff tracks of that.
Oh man, have you ever seen the actual Mystery Science Theater to it? That was
No, I never saw
that